Certainly. Here is a rewritten, logically structured, and original narrative based on the provided plot points from General Hospital, crafted to be about 6,000 characters in length. The morning sun filtered gently through the stained glass of Port Charles's Sacred Grace Chapel, casting prisms of color onto the white linens and gold-trimmed altar. For the Corinthos family and their extended circle, today was supposed to be one of redemption, unity, and solemn tradition. Daisy's baptism was meant to be a turning point, a symbol of hope for a family that had weathered too many storms. But peace in Port Charles is rarely more than an illusion, and tranquility is often shattered by secrets and shadows waiting to emerge. The guests filled the pews in quiet reverence as the officiant prepared the sacred water. Sonny stood beside Daisy with a rare softness in his eyes, while Christina, dressed modestly and holding a candle, offered a protective smile toward the child she'd come to love like her own. Brooke, Lynn, and Chase sat close together, unusually reserved, with hands clasped in tense solidarity. Their recent conversations had reached beyond the surface of family responsibilities and career demands, toward a deeper bond forged by shared wounds and quiet decisions. One of those decisions, a private pact made just days earlier, would change the course of their relationship forever, though neither had yet revealed it to anyone else. Just as the ceremony began, the chapel doors creaked open, too slowly, too deliberately. A figure stepped inside, dressed in muted tones but radiating something far darker than grief or reverence. The room's collective breath hitched as eyes turned to the aisle. It was Jen Sidwell. Gasps echoed through the chapel as Sonny's eyes darkened. Sidwell had no place here. His reputation as a manipulator and master schemer had earned him enemies in every corner of Port Charles, and many of them were seated before him now. He walked forward with a slow, calculated arrogance that only heightened the tension in the room. "You're not welcome here," Michael whispered under his breath from the front pew, his jaw clenched. But Sidwell didn't flinch. His gaze swept over the family, lingering briefly on Daisy, then Christina, before settling on Sonny. Without a word, he turned and walked back out. The silence that followed was more deafening than his entrance. Though the ceremony resumed, the atmosphere had shifted irreversibly. Christina, visibly shaken, could hardly keep her hands steady. Her sense of safety, something she had worked so hard to reclaim, was once again slipping through her fingers. Later that day, she would recount to Sam how she had seen Sidwell watching her days before, outside of Charlie's pub. It wasn't a coincidence. Something, or someone, was targeting her. And it wasn't over. Meanwhile, as tension rippled through the Corinthos circle, other stories continued to unfold. Lucas Jones had spent much of the week helping Marco Santiago settle into the rhythms of Port Charles life. Since the young man's arrival, Lucas had taken on the role of mentor, believing Marco had the potential to overcome his past associations and find real purpose in the medical world. That morning, Lucas had encouraged Marco to attend Daisy's baptism, not as a gesture of faith, but of community. Marco had hesitated, unsure whether his presence would be welcome, but ultimately took Lucas's advice to heart. Though he never made it to the chapel, his choice to try marked a shift in his resolve. Later that day, Lucas found Marco reviewing a stack of med school prep books in the hospital cafeteria. "I never thought someone like me belonged in a white coat," Marco admitted. "But maybe belonging has more to do with what you choose next than what you've done before." Lucas smiled, seeing in Marco the kind of second chance that Port Charles rarely offered, but desperately needed more of. Elsewhere, Brooke, Lynn and Chase retreated to the Quartermain estate following the baptism. Their earlier decision weighed heavily on both their minds. They had agreed to keep quiet about a development in Gio's paternity until they had more concrete proof. Though the discovery was still incomplete, a recent test had raised more questions than answers about whether Dante was truly Gio's father. Brooke Lynn had urged caution, not wanting to inflict more chaos on her son until they were certain. Chase had reluctantly agreed, but the burden of secrecy, especially from Dante, was beginning to wear on him. Back in town, Christina's anxiety took a dangerous turn. Later that evening, she returned to Charlie's after closing, hoping to retrieve something she had left behind. She never noticed the figure slipping through the side alley, never heard the door softly close behind her. She only realized she wasn't alone when she turned to find the lights out, and a pair of eyes watching her from the shadows. Panic surged as she reached for her phone, only to find it missing. She wasn't imagining it. The danger was real. Simultaneously, at the courthouse, Anna Devane strode down the hall with purpose. Her target, Assistant District Attorney Miles Turner. For weeks, Anna had harbored suspicions about Turner's connections to Sidwell and a series of questionable plea deals that had recently passed through his office. The timing of those deals, and the people they protected, was too convenient to ignore. She'd finally gathered enough to confront him. "I know what you've been doing," she told Turner plainly as he stepped into his office. "You're shielding people who shouldn't be walking free." Turner scoffed, attempting to dismiss her with bureaucratic indifference, but Anna leaned in. "You may think no one's watching, but I am. And I don't stop until I get the truth." Her warning wasn't empty. Turner may have shrugged her off in that moment, but the lines had been drawn. A new war was brewing in the justice system of Port Charles, one that would pit old allies against each other and test the moral compass of even the most seasoned enforcers of law. As the day ended, the fallout from Daisy's baptism still hung heavily in the air. A sacred ritual had been marred by the presence of a man who thrived on fear. A young woman was now marked by that fear. Secrets were rising to the surface, alliances were forming in the shadows, and a single act of defiance had reminded everyone that peace in Port Charles was always conditional. In this city, even blessings come with consequences. Let me know if you'd like this continued or extended into another act.